Hello, this is Colleen Pearl, the Cool Crone, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is all about the astrology that takes place from the full moon in Cancer to the new moon in Aquarius. In this video, we're going to talk about all the planetary ingresses, all the retrograde planets, and all the aspects that fall between the full moon in Cancer on the 17th to the new moon in Aquarius on February 1st. First, let's take the planetary ingresses. A few days after the full moon in Cancer, on January 21st, the Sun will enter Aquarius. On January 25th, Mars will enter the sign of Capricorn. On January 27th, Mercury, which has been retrograde since January 14th, will back up into Capricorn, which should be interesting for everybody. Now, I did a whole series about Mercury retrogrades, and I'm going to keep that at the end of the video. I'm going to link to my playlist for that so you don't have to miss any of those videos. And then at the end of the month, on January 29th, Venus, which has been retrograde since last December, will turn direct in Capricorn. So on January 17th, we started out with a full moon in Cancer. Now, this was important because it was a very significant, and it is a very significant, full moon. The full moon falls at 27 degrees of Cancer, which means the Sun is at 27 degrees of Capricorn. And if you watched my 2022 videos about astrology, you'll know that Capricorn from 24 to 27 degrees is very significant all year long. For one thing, it sextiles our president's sun. The Venus is very supportive of this full moon, and it's very close to Pluto, which is headed for her natal return on February 20th. Now, the full moon in Cancer finds us with our emotions at an all-time high. We want to cook and feed ourselves and all our loved ones comfort food and just stay in the comfort and security of our home. If you're not able to stay at home with your family, at least just stay at home and do maybe some small home projects like cleaning out a closet or something. But I would definitely try to be home during the moon in Cancer, because it's not only going to feed your soul, but it's just going to soothe your nerves and prevent you from having to deal with some overly dramatic and emotional situations, because when the moon's in Cancer, everybody's a little over emotional. At the end of this video, I will have playlists for all the other astrology videos that you might want to see, the 2022 videos and the Mercury retrograde videos. So something significant about this, as I mentioned, Joe Biden, his sun is at 27 degrees of Scorpio, and Venus is at 27 degrees Scorpio. So this full moon is going to hit his chart particularly and be really good. So watch after the full moon, watch for Biden's approval ratings to go way up in the polls. I think that we've been seeing over the holidays, we saw in the news a lot of journalists saying that other journalists, other media, had really downplayed all of Biden's accomplishments since he was inaugurated and not really given him credit for all of the good things that he's done. And they were going through a laundry list of things that Joe Biden had accomplished in 2021 that were really much more important than things that other presidents have done in comparison. So what they're saying is that Joe Biden has accomplished more legislation and more actions as president than anyone since Ronald Reagan. That's almost 50 years ago. That's pretty astounding. All right, also in my full moon video, I'm going to cover most of the planetary aspects that affect the full moon, but I focused on the personalized ones most because there's some bigger ones that you should be looking at. And so because I skipped those in the full moon video, I'm going to talk about them here. The first one is Mercury square Uranus. Now, Mercury square Uranus transit brings a extreme excitement and change to your daily routine and all your interactions, but this can also cause tension and upset because you're not quite knowing what to expect in your day-to-day life. You may get upsetting news or unsettling news or surprising news. That's Uranus, and Mercury is news, and it forces you to change plans. The normal of take two. The normal tempo of life just speeds up, and you may have an unsettling feeling of always having to be catching up instead of, being on time, being on task. On the positive side, this does help you change your perspective about things. So if there's been something that you've just been digging in your heels and saying, no, I'm just not going to change. I say, for instance, getting a new phone. No, I like my own phone. I'm going to stay with my own old phone. I hate having to change phones because then you have to learn it all over again. During this Mercury square Uranus, you might be able to accept the idea that, hey, people have to get new phones all the time. It's only every couple of years, and I can handle learning a new one. And by this time, I've learned several, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal. So you might be able to embrace something like that under the Mercury square Uranus transit. Another aspect that happens during the full moon is Venus trining Uranus. And so this gives us a desire to express ourselves more freely. We may have been going along in relationships with maybe coworkers or your boss or even people in your family where you just kind of tolerate their behavior and just go along with it rather than standing up for yourself and saying, I really don't like that, or I can't handle it, or I just can't do that anymore. It's really an imposition for me. And with Venus trining Uranus, you'll finally get the chance to say, I can't do it anymore. So it gives you a chance to say no, but in a nice way. Now, Uranus has been retrograde for a lot of 2021, and it's not going to be direct until the following day after the full moon, but this gives you a chance to begin working with the Uranus direct energy. And by that, I mean you need to identify what it is that you're unable to stand up for yourself about. So if it's, doing something for somebody, dressing a certain way, speaking a certain way, doing your job a certain way, if it just doesn't feel right to you, you need to, and you will be able to under this Venus trine Uranus aspect, embrace your own authenticity and way of life and way you want to live your life. Instead of waiting until you're so resentful and so upset about this that you just burst at the seams and say something to the person that may be very hurtful, be proactive, identify that itch that needs to be scratched, and then speak to the person in a civil adult tone about the thing that needs to be changed. Don't wait until you're ready to blow your stack, because then that's uncontrolled Uranian energy, and you could lash out in a way that's very hurtful and really damage the relationship. If you can identify what that issue is and speak to them about it during this transit, because this is the best time to do it. I mean, everybody's energies are going to be more open to different ideas under the Venus trine Uranus transit. And then we have Mars square Neptune. This is really a tricky one because when Mars is squaring Neptune, your energy, your physical energy is very low, and you're extremely susceptible to the negative aspects of Neptune, which are suspicion, deceit, lies, scandal. And it's normal to feel discouraged because you just don't feel 100% physically yourself, but you also don't feel you can stand up for yourself, and that's the Neptune part of it. So it's possible that you're being manipulated or taken advantage of, or somebody's really playing on your guilt, and you have to recognize this and admit it in yourself that you're uncomfortable and that you need to work through this. Now, if you can't really do this by yourself, during Mars square Neptune may be the perfect time for you to seek professional help, a psychologist or something, to talk through this. Because you're low on energy, your recuperative powers are not high. You're feeling almost ill over this, and you need help. And that's the way to look at it, that you're ill and you need help. Once you can face things and move on, this transit won't hold any power over you. You just have to admit that you're uncomfortable and work on the issues that will make you feel more comfortable, which is probably standing up for yourself. It could be too that at this time you discover that you are the victim of gossip or slander or, just some kind of deceit, and you you want to address it in some way. And then there could be individuals who promise to help you with it, and it just sounds like, this is great, this is my miracle, I can just depend on them. If it's too good to be true, it's probably not true. So you do need to figure out how to deal with these things on your own. And Mars is passion. And even though it depletes your energy, your passion underneath is still there. So you will want to do something about it and feel maybe that you really can't without the assistance of another person. But what you should do, again, is consult a professional about your feelings about this, address it that way, and then you can move on. So on January 21st, the sun will enter Aquarius. And some people will really notice that, and others just won't notice it at all. I always notice it because in my first house, even though I have Capricorn rising, I have Aquarius inserted into my first house. So when the sun comes into Aquarius, it just opens up that part of me that is much more Aquarian. Like I said, I do have Capricorn rising, so I do feel the sun going into Capricorn as well. So this time of year is very active for me. On January 25th, Mars will enter Capricorn. Now, Mars in Capricorn is very militaristic, and it will bring out people who want to really follow the rules and enforce the rules and punish anyone who goes against the rules. So there is going to be kind of a heightened tension around that time, which I think is not just normal for this time of year, but given the state of our country right now and the difficulty in our politics, I think this could be a very iffy time. Then on the 27th, Mercury retrograde, which has been retrograde since the 14th, will back up into the sign of Capricorn. So it will come out of Aquarius and go back into Capricorn where it was already. So it's going to be repeating some degrees that it went over when it was moving in direct motion. For some people, this is going to seem like deja vu all over again. For others, it's just going to be a big relief because a Mercury retrograde in an air sign is tricky because Mercury isn't air, but it is mental. It's very communicative. It's all about speech and communications and how you put things out there. So allowing it to go back from Aquarius, where it's really befuddling all our communications, and going into Capricorn will kind of spur that idea of building things. So I'm hoping that that will allow people to begin building consensus rather than just having arguments. Because remember, Mars is in Capricorn and it's very militaristic. And then on the 29th, Venus is going to go direct in Capricorn. So I should have saved this for the retrograde portion of the video, but that's coming right up anyway. So let's move on to the retrograde planets. So these are the planets that are going to be retrograde. Mercury has been retrograde since January 14th, and it stations direct on February 3rd in Capricorn. Venus has been retrograde in Capricorn since December 19th, and it will station direct on January 29th. So in its retrograde motion, it has been going over degrees that it already went to, and then after it stations direct, it's going to repeat some of those degrees again. So this is a typical pattern when a planet is retrograde. It hits the degrees going over it when it's in forward motion, then it turns retrograde, backs up over those degrees, then it turns direct again and goes over those degrees for a third time. So it's very, very typical that things get done in this 1, 2, 3 motion. And people will feel this in their lives. They try to do something, it doesn't quite work, and then on the third time, it goes. And maybe this is where the saying of third time's the charm comes from, because with retrograde planets, it always works that way. Now we're going to talk about the planetary aspects that happen after the full moon, before the next new moon. And we're going to start with the sun trining the north node. So on January 18th, we have the sun trining the north node, and this is a period of time where you're going to possibly figure out what your real meaning in life is. What is the focal point of your life? What's your mission? What's your destiny? Or you may witness this revelation in somebody else's life. But the seeing of your destiny is what's possible when the sun trines the north node. And in a collective way, we begin to see why things happen the way they do overall in society and what role we play with the greater good. So it's an interesting time, the 18th, to have that revelation come out. And then on the 23rd, we have the sun conjuncting Mercury. So one thing about the Mercury and the sun is that they're always close together, and when Mercury gets too close to the sun, the astrologers have a word for it, it's called Cassimi. The difficulty with Mercury being too close to the sun is that it overstimulates our senses, specifically our brain, our thinking, sometimes even our emotions. There's just too much of a good thing. So the sun is our confidence and power, our life force, our chi, and Mercury is the way that we convey ideas to other people, whatever shape that takes, whether it's drawing pictures or speaking or writing or singing or putting it up on the internet. So when the sun conjuncts Mercury, this really puts a focus on your thinking and communications, and also somewhat short distance travel, but it makes you very alert. It makes you very quick thinking, it makes you very adaptable, it makes you very curious. So expect an increase in personal interaction in your neighborhood, with siblings, schools, all over the internet. This is also a very busy time with a lot of appointments, a lot of correspondence and meetings, activity, new information to process, decisions to make. It's a great time for sharing ideas, for making plans, for buying and selling, negotiating and meeting new people. Then on the 26th, we have Neptune squaring Lilith. Now, both of these bodies have to do with religion and spiritual beliefs. Neptune has to do with your most firmly held spiritual beliefs, and Lilith has to do with the darker side of religious or spiritual beliefs. So we may find that religious zeal and hidden agendas sort of collide, and their energy may be at odds. Both Neptune and Lilith hide things. Neptune hides things by obscuring them, either in a fog or by dissolving them. In some way, it just kind of grays it out. But Lilith outright blocks things. It protects or blocks the person or the information from other people's view. And when these two bodies are in square, a 90-degree angle, some event may occur that reveals a shocking truth or challenges a long-held belief. You may find someone who is prone to manipulation just digs deeper into their fantasy. Somebody who is completely off the mark may resist the truth that is revealed. They may just reject it outright. Or for you personally, you may find a reason why you have felt bad before, going back to the full moon, when you could have been a person who was the object of slander or gossip. Now with Neptune squaring Lilith, you may find out why. It may not cure the situation, but you may find out why. It's important when we're talking about these astrological aspects that you realize that it is not a story that always has a happy ending, and it isn't always a story that even has an ending. It's an ongoing story. So as things play out and evolve in astrology, it's important that you don't jump to conclusions about what it means. It means what the planetary energies say it means and what the signs mean. So you have to keep in your mind context that Neptune in Pisces is very, very befuddling. It's very subversive, actually. Neptune in Pisces is very strong. It's very strong Neptune energy. It's not strong like warlike energy. It's strong Neptune energy, which means that Neptune can do anything very, very well when it's in the sign of Pisces. But what it does very, very well is Neptunian things like dissolve things, obscure things, fog things up, confuse things. It's also very good for artistic pursuits, but we're talking about a square. So we're not talking about the most positive aspects of Neptune right now. Now, Black Moon Lilith is not actually a planet, it's a point in part of the moon's orbit. And we found that when that point aspects planets, it causes things to happen. And one of the things that Black Moon Lilith does is obscure the truth or block the truth from other people. And in a chart, Black Moon Lilith represents what you hide from yourself and what you hide from others. So these are things that are hidden by people. They're not things like Neptune. It's kind of like the universe hides it. Like Neptune rules the virus, really. Well, Neptune and Pluto together rule the virus. And so that's something that's hidden by the universe. Like we didn't really hide it. No person hid it. I mean, there could have been people who hid their results of testing or whatever, but really the virus is a universal thing. What Black Moon Lilith addresses are things that people hide, either hiding from themselves or from others. So very interesting when Neptune squares Lilith, because it's going to be a big clash of beliefs, zeal, religious stuff. It's just going to be really interesting to see what happens on the 26th. And then on the 27th, we have Mercury trining the North Node. So this is when just the right words pop into your head. You find yourself just, singing the right song that just illuminates an idea for you and allows you to get life-changing information that you can grasp for the first time. So you may have like a song that occasionally pops into your head, but on this day, on the 27th, when it pops into your head, your destiny will become clear. So it's a really positive aspect. It is a trine. It's Mercury, it's our minds, it's the way we think, it's the way we speak. But North Node is your destiny. That's where you ultimately want to explore and promote and develop all of your best potential. Very, very interesting. So even if your North Node isn't anywhere near the end of Taurus or the beginning of Gemini, you still may have this moment. And then on the 29th, we have Mercury conjuncting Pluto. So these aspects always come in triplicate due to Mercury's retrograde motion, like we were talking about before. But also, this particular combination of things with Mercury conjuncting Pluto for the third time only happens every 6 to 7 years because of the cycles of Mercury and Pluto and the way they coincide with each other. So make the most of it. This is an opportunity for major insights and adjustments on how you have been helped and hindered or even victimized by the urge for power, domination, and control over others. So if you've ever been in an abusive relationship, if you've got abusive parents, or you've been in an abusive romantic relationship, or even married to somebody who was abusive, or had an abusive boss, this is the time for you to gain insights and adjustments in regards to that situation and to be able to understand where you were in control and where you were not in control. So I think that this would be a good day to work on, and maybe work from the full moon up to the 29th, work on forgiving yourself for being powerless and for being the victim. I think that that final day, the 29th, also Venus goes direct that day, would be an excellent day to finally just say, okay, I've really let it go. I'm not going to be victimized anymore. And I forgive myself for having been victimized in the first place. Because a lot of times we repeat patterns because we don't forgive ourselves. We blame ourselves for having done it in the first place. On January 30th, the Sun squares Uranus. And on this day, you can utilize the feelings of increased instability in order to break yourself free from old restrictions. So to get the most out of this transit, you need to place your focus on living a more authentic and exciting life, even if some of the changes feel difficult or unexpected. Now remember, we started out this section talking about Venus trining Uranus, so that sets up a situation where you are finally breaking free of weak behavior or behavior where you're teaching other people to take advantage of you, and you're finally learning to say no and standing up for yourself. So the Sun square Uranus kind of is the test and the capper on that. It requires you to be very open-minded and flexible and allow change into your life, change on your own behavior. You may start to feel uneasy or anxious with people during this transit. There's going to be a buildup of tension. And just like I talked about before with, not waiting until you're so tense and resentful that you just explode out of this, you need to harness this and address it forthrightly, very in an adult and civil manner with the people involved, so that you can forgive yourself, you can talk to them, you can point out to them what behavior is making you feel bad and how your reactive behavior is also making you feel bad. You can get over a whole bunch of stuff with this. So the Sun square Uranus transit is really important. It's big. The sun is your chi, your heart, your legacy, what you want to be known for. And Uranus is coming through and making a very personal connection to the sun. And so it's a time when you can really make some positive changes in your own behavior and your own psyche, so that you don't have to be victimized by others. This whole little 2.5-week section really talks about power and powerlessness, victims and victimhood, claiming your own, going into your destiny. This can be a transformative period if you let it. If you take the time from the full moon in Cancer all the way to the new moon in Aquarius and really work on some of these things, you can really free yourself of a great many psychological burdens that may be holding you back. It's just a really powerful period for change. So that's what I have to say about this period. We lead up now to February 1st in bulk, when we will have a new moon in Aquarius at 12 degrees 19 minutes, not at the end of anything. It's almost smack dab in the middle of Aquarius, so that's going to be really nice for most people. It's not going to be hitting those degrees where we touch on Pluto or anything like that. Although it is going to be squaring Uranus. That's about all I can say right now. I didn't do a big chart about it yet. But that new moon in Aquarius, I always love that one because that one's also in my first house. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing. Please leave me some comments down below. Let me know how you liked this reading, and I will see you next time.